And I called Pete. I said, is there any truth to that? And they said it's ridiculous.
The meeting for Musk at the Pentagon comes as the department cancels $580 million in contracts, plans to trim as many as 60,000 civilian jobs, part of their cost-cutting efforts. Let's talk about that and more now. Republican Congressman Greg Murphy joins us from the state of North Carolina. Also a medical doctor, member of the Ways and Means and Veteran Affairs Committee, so a lot of topics we could get into tonight with you, Congressman. But let's start with DOGE, if we can. And people say, well, is defense going to be on the table? So that's part of the larger discussion, whether there was a China briefing or not, or whether it was canceled or ever planned. What about that in terms of what Musk can do at the Department of Defense and how aggressive you think he should be? What would you say?
Sure. Connell, I think we've a little bit, and I'm going to say this for Republicans, a little bit lost our narrative in saying why all this is going on. Why are we looking at all these cuts and budget trimming initiatives? Our debt is spiraling out of control, and the Republicans and Democrats are at fault of this. And so literally everything, Connell, in the federal government is on the table. Where can we cut and not reduce benefits? Where can we cut and not hurt our military? The fact that Musk is going over there and talking with officials is well within his purview. He has a top secret clearance, and my understanding, because of what he's done with SpaceX. So, I don't know what was on the table. I don't trust the New York Times to tell the truth in anything, much less this particular story. But, Musk is able to do what the president allows him to do.
Robert Sherman, who's one of our White House correspondents, was there in the Oval and did ask about what you and I are talking about. And I'm going to play that right now in the president's response. This was earlier today.
Okay.
Mr. President, what do you say to American military families who are seeing Elon Musk at the Pentagon today, are hearing about Defense Department cuts, and their thoughts are immediately going to the safety of their loved ones who are currently deployed?
Well, we're making our country strong. And when they see a thing like that and they hear that story about Elon and China, what they should do is realize that the New York Times is a corrupt institution. One of the things that I know that Pete's doing is he's talking about a lot of the civilian staff, and we're going to get them other jobs. We're going to have a lot of jobs in this country.
All right. So what would you say about cuts at the Pentagon? By the way, the same day that we're introducing this new line of fighter jets, this F-47.
Yeah, look at what President Trump is doing as compared to the last 4 years ago. We became a nation that the rest of the world laughed at. President Trump's, one of his main initiatives is to make us strong again. And for us to go, for the president or Musk to go after our fighting ability is insane. And what we're trying to do is trim fat, try to get back to making us sure that we have a lean, mean fighting force. And we're spending money the right way. Not pouring thousands of dollars into a golden toilet or some other nonsense that has been heard of in the past. We need to get back. The adults have the checkbook again to saying what's right, what's a good expenditure, what's not as good an expenditure, and then, try to clean up the mess.
I do feel like that brings up a larger conversation that I wanted to have with you anyway about something that you care a lot about, which is, Medicare, Medicaid, and health-related programs, because the same thing could be said, right? If you go to the Defense Department and you say, well, we just want to trim the fat, but is there enough there to really make a dent to all the trillions and trillions of dollars in debt? Same thing with, Medicaid. They said, well, they're not going to really cut the program. We're just going to find fraud. We're going to find mistakes, and we're going to correct them. Is it really enough, though? That's good. I think that's what the question's going to be.
Yeah, I can't answer that completely. I don't know. But Connell, as someone who actually still sees patients, I still see really a majority, seemingly, of patients on Medicaid, most of whom absolutely are eligible. But the fact that the Biden administration only allowed once a year, if that, to go back and audit their Medicaid rolls, I see plenty of people who I know do not deserve to be on Medicaid, but come in with their Medicaid card. So many of those individual things, we get back to actually making the system work for those who are eligible, the elderly, the elderly poor, pregnant women, children, the disabled. Let's get back to getting the money so we can actually spend it properly.
You see that on the screen? I don't know if you see it now, but that was the types of mistakes that are made. And the first one, looking at error rates, right? And that's what I mean by what is it enough, right? So people say, well, there's all these improper payments, for example, that are going on. But this particular study's found that it's like 95% of them are proper. So again, are we going to make the dent? Is there enough there?
Well, look at the trillions that we spend. Medicaid is 1/5 of our budget, our medical budget in the United States. We expanded Medicaid in certain states to help with the working poor. Nobody should be on Medicaid who is able-bodied and not working. We know that for a fact. And believe me, Connell, I see these people, so I know what I'm talking about.
Right.
People come in, should be working. Is it enough? I mean, it remains to be seen. But the fact that we've not reformed it, we've not looked at this with an objective and with a scalpel to go back and say, hey, are we doing the right things? It's long since past time that the U.S. government did that.
All right, final thing, Congressman, let me ask you one political question. Earlier, we were showing like Bernie Sanders and AOC, and they're out on the road. And then we've talked about town halls going on. I know the speakers come up and said, well, maybe not a great idea for Republicans. I just want to play a clip. This is from our NewsNation station in Greenville of a constituent who I guess wants you and other Republicans to hold more in-person town halls. Let me play this, and then I want to come back, get your perspective on whether it's a good idea or how you think you should deal with constituents. Here it is.
When we called, they said, we don't know what time it's going to be, but we'll write down your name and number. And then miraculously at 7:20, only select people of his congressional district received a phone call saying that the town hall was right now. People can think of thoughtful questions to ask him and to also be able to set out an hour of their time to really listen to what Congressman Murphy has to say so that they can be better aware of the subjects and the issues at hand.
Okay, so how are you going to handle this particular situation yourself?
Yeah, you know, we're seeing this across the country, protests everywhere. You know, look, I'm responsible, or I'm honored to serve over 800,000 individuals with varied interests. The best way to contact them is to do our telephone town halls. We had close to 100,000 people that were called out, dialed out, but there are ways to call in too. We take all of these individuals. You know, if that individual is the one who I'm thinking of, you know, look, make an appointment. I'm happy to sit down and talk with these people. When they come in and bang on doors and they disrupt the normal workings, you lose your message. You lose your ability to have fruitful conversations with the member who's representing you. I'm happy. We had some really hard questions on that telephone town hall.
Right.
I addressed every single one of them.
But you don't think in this environment, you don't think you can do them in person in this environment?
Well, sadly enough, if you look at what happened with Chuck Edwards out in the western part of the state, they were 3,000 people. They were punching him. And security said they had blocked off 6 of the exits. You know, it's sad. Senator Tillis has been getting so many death threats. You know, I don't, you know, I'm fine to meet with anybody, but let's do it in a nice, orderly manner. I'll sit down and I'll talk with anybody. But all these threats and everything are not good for America.
All right, thanks for talking with us tonight. Covered a lot of ground, Congressman. Thanks for coming on.
All right, take care.
Congressman Murphy.